So, Julia and Emerick, we hear a lot from a lot of our listeners and from people in the industry about this sort of glorification of leadership. Everybody wants to be a leader. We tell everybody to, aspire to be a leader in what they're doing. And we talk about the benefits, the rewards, the glory, the financial success that comes with leadership. But all too often, we don't actually talk about the cost of leadership. And for those that have walked that journey, we all know that leadership comes with a price, that there are costs of sitting in a leadership seat. There are things that you must deal with and things you must withstand to successfully lead over time. And we were having a little talk about this little video from Kirby Smart, the coach of the Georgia football team, where he talks about the cost of leadership. We thought it'd be a great way to tee up our conversation today around what is the long-term price of leadership and the fact that leadership is in fact quite expensive.
Anyone can tell you the benefits of great leaders. Anybody can tell you what it looks like. They can tell you what leadership can do for you. They can tell you how to develop leadership. There's tons of books written on great leaders and leadership. But you won't see, and what you will never see, is people talk about the costs of leadership, costs associated with leadership, I should say. If we truly want to be honest and upfront about leadership, you can't ignore the cost of leadership. Great leaders are willing to accept those costs. Number one, you will have to make hard decisions that negatively affect people you care about. Number two, you will be disliked despite your best attempt to do the best for the most. And number three, you will be misunderstood and won't always have the opportunity to defend yourself. Those are three costs that come from being a great leader.
So, all right, Bo, what do you think of that?
Well, I thought it was really powerful. It's short, but very powerful, because I know that in my journey, in my development and learning as a leader and continued journey, as I say, because we're always, trying to overcome and increase our leadership, these things really resonated with me. Especially this idea that as leaders, we oftentimes have to make difficult decisions. And that can be really hard because we don't even always know that we're making the right decision. But we know that decision deeply affects people that we care about, and sometimes might be hard on people that we really care about. And so I know that in these times where budgets are tight, we're having to make decisions about how to keep enterprises going, that can be really challenging. It can be a real challenge as a leader to think about what are the impacts of my decision, yet we know a decision has to be made. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I struggle with is, like, a lot of people who aspire to leadership aspire to be liked. They aspire to make a difference in people's lives, and they want the affirmation that comes from that. And if you were to, look at social media or sort of popular culture right now, like, leadership is this glamorous, everybody loves you and everybody wants to be like you kind of thing. But the reality is that real leaders who actually take real stands, who push through difficult times, are often really disliked in their moment sometimes for the positions that they need to take. And then finally, like, as a mixed kid from Somerville who played ice hockey and does this idea of being misunderstood is something that has always traveled with me my whole life. And I oftentimes thought, well, I was going to become a leader. I was going to build this community. I was going to build this culture. I was going to fit in. I was going to shape the space that was going to be the community that would accept me. Yet it took me a long time to realize that as a leader in that space, I often had to be the one that was a bit removed. And that meant that came with a certain level of being misunderstood and people not understanding the pressures you were under or the reasons why you might make the decisions you make.
Well, Bo, that's really interesting, because I say this, I had this thing that I say that, whatever people don't know, they'll make up. So it's all kinds of rumors of that they've never done it. They've never been in that space. They imagine what it's like. And that's the narrative that they play in their head over and over and over again. Then they start making up all these different conversations and how all these different outcomes and how great it is. And then when you get in that place and you look up and you say, oh, hell, this ain't what I thought it was. Now you find yourself apologizing to the people who you thought was, I can't say the word, but you thought they were. And then you realize, that comes with being a leader. somebody's going to call you at some point as a leader, because you can't make everybody happy. And then the financial reward, everybody believes there's this huge financial reward of owning something, particularly in our community. I got to own it. I got to be the boss. I got to be the leader. It's not only expensive financially, it's expensive mentally. It's expensive on your relationships, right? It's expensive on your time. And you may not get the financial reward you think you are going to get or that you believe you deserve.
Well, it's the idea of it, Emerick. It's the idea of having a position or a title, or particularly owning something. In our community, because we've had such a long history of not being able to own things, the idea of being able to own something is attractive and be the leader of it. And you don't know the rest of the details. You don't know the cost that it pays to be the boss, right? And it is incredibly taxing and stressful financially, emotionally, like Bo was saying, making the decisions. But to an extent that, Bo, you were just telling us about your friends, some things that we saw in the media of the stresses and how people are handling the stress of some of these roles and expectations that leaders have. Do you want to talk about that or touch on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's pretty deep because it's like been something that's been highly publicized a lot. Like there one specific instance of a former high flying politician who ended up, in killing his wife and killing himself. But in less high profile situations in the community I'm in of real estate developers, there's been 3 suicides in the last, 5 to 6 months. And, people like to sort of, the headlines read, oh, this person must have gone crazy. They must have done this. But I think oftentimes, and that's oftentimes the case, they've had some break with reality or what's right. But I think we don't always think through the pressures that those leadership positions put on people and the struggles they may have with mental health when they're going through that. And so, especially in our industry where we all like real estate, it's easy to talk about being a leader, and it's easy to say you have your team or you got your little brokerage and everybody's, amped up about that. And I think that means you go on stage and you talk in front of everybody and everybody wants to be like you. But that's not actually real leadership. That's like one component of promotion. And that's actually not leadership. What you see as your quote unquote leaders isn't actually the leadership.
Yeah.
The actual leadership happens in, the quiet conversations, the difficult one-on-ones, the staying up late at night to decide how you keep your organization going when all odds are against you. And if you actually have a scaled organization in today's moment in the economy and real estate, like you're likely feeling these things. Like you're likely not like, this is not like the go-go time. And it's easy when we're sitting on the other side of the table. It's easy when you're in the brokerage, not owning the brokerage, to criticize the owner. It's one of the easiest things to do. Easiest for us to criticize our leaders, to criticize our politicians, to criticize the boss. Like, and there's a natural out that comes when we're not actually responsible. But if you're a true leader and you're actually leading an enterprise or leading an organization, there's a level of accountability for the outcomes and the results that cannot be shrinked, that cannot be sidestepped if you're truly leading an enterprise.
Yeah. And then the key is the things that happen in the dark, right? And that's what you're talking about. Some of the things that happen in the dark that never comes to light. And on the flip side of that, everybody, like some people think, well, they must have gone crazy. It didn't go crazy. It's just the pressure sometimes, and people look for that relief of the pressure of leadership.
Well, I think the challenge is they don't see a relief. That's how that happens. They don't see a relief in sight. Yeah. Yeah.
People break when they don't see a break from the pressure that they're feeling, right? And so like, it's all over the media. It's all over social media, this conversation about Justin Fairfax. And I don't understand how you kill the person that you love. That doesn't compute to me. But the rest of it, like a fall from grace, a no see, no sight on how you rebuild your life. And that piece, I think, not specific to him, but in any case, everyone as a leader in a challenging time, you're only a couple of steps removed from this very dark place that says, I don't have a path forward, right? I don't have a path forward. And so I don't understand how that ends up in violence against others. So I want to be very clear. I 100% don't have I can't emotionally connect to that at all. But the violence against oneself actually for me seems only 2 clicks away from where a lot of leaders end up in the middle of the night trying to solve their issue.
Well, specifically, and let's get specific. You're saying, the things that people don't see in the dark rooms or the decisions that have to be made or the financial. What specifically is it that people who are listening may not see that leaders have to handle that they don't know anything about, the things that they judge, the things that they critique? What sort of decisions are being made that are that heavy on leadership?
It's sometimes not even a decision, Julia. It's a place where you've had a certain amount of success in what you've been doing, and you're no longer having that same success, and you keep making your best attempt to rectify the situation, and it doesn't appear that the needle is moving to change that situation. Now, here's where I think where people harm themselves is that they built this public persona, and they're walking in this public persona of who they are. And then when that thing happens where they're not performing at that same level, the conversations are talking about how bad they're failing, which direction they're going. When people are caught up in that public persona to a certain degree, they can't handle the pressure of not living up to the expectations of what they told the world, that the world should have expectations of them. And they internalize it to a place where they say, I can't deal with this pressure of getting back to where I was before. Anything else is unacceptable.
I think what you're saying, Emerick, is people wanting to be liked, which is what we heard in that video, right? People aren't going to always like you. And for people who want to be liked, that's a challenging part of leadership all in itself.
It's not even just talking about people liking you. It's the point that you set a standard, you function at such a high level, and that standard is there, even for yourself. And you don't find a way to meet that standard, and you feel like you're letting yourself down, you're letting your family down. It's not about being liked. It's just you're not operating at that same level of what you thought was the level you should be at.
Like, let's even take this real specific, right? When I started in real estate brokerage in 2006, 98% of the real estate brokerages were profitable. I don't know the exact number, but I know in certain organizations what that number is, and it's in the 20%, 10% even for some groupings or regions. So if we still have a culture today in real estate, if you were to ask the average agent in an office today, they're going to say, oh, my broker's making all this money and I got to fight over my $25.
I just heard it yesterday.
And the reality is, no, they're probably losing money.
Correct.
And they might be going through massive personal financial crisis to keep that office alive, to keep the illusion that everything's okay going. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, they're facing people daily saying, well, you make all the money and give me this and do this and do this. Mm-hmm. And so that's the price of being misunderstood. And so the pressure of that is that someone's got to go home and then they got to make a difficult decision. And a lot of these brokerages are losing money because they aren't making difficult decisions. They are still giving out all these rewards and bonusing people and to try to give the illusion that they're succeeding. And they're still flying high and showing off. And the reality is the system may be crumbling behind that because they're unwilling to make the difficult decision, not necessarily from a bad place, but maybe from a place of, I don't want to have to let go of this person that's worked with me for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I made a commitment to my landlord. I got to pay the rent.
Yeah. For me, a lot of those things that you're talking about are the fact that as a leader, you're responsible oftentimes for other people. It's one thing if I just don't make, if I don't make any money, I'll find another way. If I'm an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, I couldn't, I didn't meet my expectation or standard. But when you are a leader and other people are relying on your vision for their livelihood, for their families, that's an entirely different ballgame. you're talking about, running a brokerage that may not be profitable. What I lose sleep about is the fact that I brought investors with me and who joined my rally cry because they believed in the vision. And so now I have the responsibility of carrying that out so no one loses money. I don't mind if I lose money. I can make money again.
Yeah.
But being responsible for other people's livelihood, which is why some people are always hesitant to hire staff, even if they're real estate agents and they need help. They don't want to be responsible for someone else's livelihood. And as a leader, particularly of a large organization, you end up being responsible for a lot of people and maybe take it too personally, right? More personally than you probably should, because these people are also responsible for their own decisions and their own, but as a leader, you find yourself feeling responsible, and that weight you carry, not just the weight of your own self, but the weight of all the people who are relying on you.
Yeah. And there's an interesting piece about resilience in that, Julia, because I know that to make it personal, in this season of my life, if I was worried about Bo, if I had been working in a big company, I would have sometime in the last 2 years just taken 6 months and gone and sat on a beach. I would have said, I've worked for, 30 years. I built this stuff. I personally need a break. I personally need to recharge. I personally need to stare at the water and figure out, what I'm processing in my soul. But I don't actually have the option to do that in my mind. And maybe I do, but in my mind, I don't, because I need to show up because there's thousands of people that depend on the enterprise that I need to show up for how they live. There's investors, there's employees, there's partners, there's projects. There are things that are in motion that as a leader, I don't get to say I'm tired today and I'm going to call in sick, right? If I work and I just feel like I can call in sick and now I made that someone else's problem. Or if I'm a realtor and I'm just me, I can not show up and not sell the house and I just don't make any money. But today, if I don't get out of bed, and I remember this, something actually happened to me a while ago, maybe 10 years ago. And I was in one of my pity party things, and I was laying in bed and, saying, I just don't feel well. This is so overwhelming. And somebody says to me, well, it doesn't matter. Stop worrying about yourself. Get out of your butt. There's 1,000 people that depend on you. Get out of bed and go to work. Who cares whether you have a stuffy nose? Who cares if you don't feel well? Who cares if something's going on in your family? Go show up. And so I think we sometimes underestimate how much people in leadership, how important it is to do it anyways, oftentimes as a leader, and how many leaders may be doing it anyways, even though
there's
they're
a lot
not
of people
position.
doing it anyways. And I would challenge that, because you cannot show up as your best self if you are not well. You have to take care of, I always have to take care of me for you. Right? Because trust me, y'all know when I have an attitude and when I'm done with it, I'm done with it. And I have an attitude. I shouldn't show up like that. That's not,
You can be a
Emerick,
certain
nobody was asking for commentary, Emerick. Nobody.
You can be a certain kind of way sometimes.
Nobody asked you, Emerick. But the reality is, if you don't take care of yourself, you'll show up like that. And that's not helpful or fruitful either. So there is a requirement. And speaking of resilience, what do you do to fill your own cup so that you can pour from it? Because you can't pour from an empty cup. We all know that. So there is some level of that says, yes, I have to show up anyways. But if my anyway kind of showing up isn't helpful and it's harmful, you do need to take care of yourself and identify what is it that I need to do to take care of myself, take care of me for you.
And that's key. Bo, you didn't know this or not, but last week, early this week, I was like, the hell, I've been this way for about 3 weeks. I was like, the hell with this. I'm sick of this. And then I just kept working through it. And then I went outside and I looked at the water. I walked at the water. The water, it was just a place of relief. And so my last day there, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And I went back into my full gratitude mode, and I came back. I left. I left earlier than I was supposed to. I was supposed to spend a couple extra days just to get myself together. I left that last day that we were there because I was full. My cup was full at that point. I probably should have taken a day anyway, just for good measures. But I left anyway because my cup was full, and I had that recharge moment. And it happens. And I'm a firm believer in it. As a leader, you have to find an outlet where you can escape the world and nothing else matters, because you got to take care, just as you said, Julie, you got to take care of you. And that's the pond for me. I can't tell. And since I've had that pond over the past 4.5 years, I'm a different person. I walk a different way. If I didn't have that pond, I'd probably be in trouble right now.
Yeah.
So you're talking about resilience strategies, and one of those is finding your peace, your happy place, getting away so you can be stronger. Sometimes you find that strength in other people. And the only other people who will understand oftentimes are people who have been in your situation, like you talked about earlier, Bo. Otherwise, they misunderstand. They think you living high on the hog, you know, and they don't know why you made the decisions you made. But people who have been in your shoes do understand, and you have to find that community of other leaders to support you in wearing the weight that you wear.
Yeah, and I think that's so much of what has been powerful for me. I mean, Emerick just referenced a situation where we came together as a group of leaders and we're trying to go through the time. And sometimes that's a bigger group, but even in smaller groups, you know, I've had a group of 4 guys that for the last 10 years, we make time at least 2 times a year to go away for a weekend, and we talk about our businesses, we talk about our lives. Then we also just do some de-stressing stuff, right? Like we just hang out and go on the water or do whatever. But to have a place where you can share your perspective, I think for entrepreneurs and leaders is so important, to have a place where other people kind of understand what you're going through. And so finding that circle, that network that can do that, I think is a critical coping strategy that re-energizes you to go back and show up as the best leader that you can be.
Yeah. And Julie, you said it. Yeah. And I believe we have to take a look at it. When we talk about leadership being expensive, right? You've got to lead yourself. You got to figure out a way to lead yourself. And I believe that sometimes we get lost in our world around us and we don't figure out how to lead ourselves out of that dark place, and we have issues that we don't even know about, and then they manifest themselves in different ways where we could be lashing out. It could be some things that may be personally destructive for you. Never mind, it doesn't have to be suicide. It could just be personally destructive for you, and we ultimately have to figure out how to lead ourselves and how to find our happy place for ourselves, because we spend so much time helping other people, we lose ourselves in that space.
I also think sometimes having the other space allows us to connect with the sort of human side of leadership. Like great leadership, if you think about important leadership moments, they don't just take into account the organization or the business you're leading, they take into account the broader context of humanity. And part of the problem is when we're so myopically working to push something forward, we can get stuck in that frame. And in that frame, things look worse than they are, better than they are. If all I'm thinking about is my role as a brokerage owner and the brokerage industry is changing and I'm no longer going to be relevant, and it's all going to screw up, and then it's not worth living. But there's so much more to life, to business, to joy, to happiness than just real estate brokerage. And so as we think, we sometimes lose that perspective when we're so tied up in trying to solve and be resilient in the business. I think sometimes we've got to step outside the business and take this broader look that Emerick's talking about to see the broader scope of humanity and life and the beauty that we get to touch in that leadership role.
And your purpose. I think I posted this morning about burnout isn't always about just being overwhelmed and tired. Sometimes it's about misalignment. You know, when you get burnout and your leadership becomes heavy when you lose sight of what the purpose is, what your mission was, and maybe even lose sight of what your vision is or your vision was. And so when you reconnect to that purpose, why did I even get in this in the first place? What was the vision I had? What is the mission for my life? When you reconnect to that, the leadership becomes a lot less heavy. The burnout becomes a lot less heavy, but needing to reconnect to that is so important.
Yeah. And it's something I read a little bit ago. It says, what are you letting go, or what have you let go? What are you willing to let go? People, habits, parts of your identity.
Well, what have you let go to grow into the leader you are now? Have you had to let things go to be a leader?
Absolutely. For me, I think I let part of my ego go. Because
Which part, Emerick?
the part that where I had to go and save everybody, and that validated me by saving people or feeling like I was saving people. That validated me, and my ego says that nobody can save people like I save people because I'm the greatest savior since Jesus Christ. And the reality is that, dude, this ain't about you. It's really not about you. It's about other people doing what they're supposed to do with all of the systems, tools, and models that you put in place. And they have to be willing to use what you've put in place. And if they don't use it and they're not successful at the highest level possible, that's not on you. That's on them. You've done everything that you're supposed to do. And you don't have to go hold their hand. You don't have to go rescue them. You don't have to go play Harriet Tubman. You don't have to do all those things. And so part of that, I had to let go part of that. And then some of it was control. I had to let go of some control. A lot of things I was in the middle of, I didn't have no business in the middle of. I would go fix stuff, all kinds of crazy stuff. It would be nothing to see me at 9:00 at night, crawling through the ceiling, running wire, just doing all kinds of crazy stuff when I could have hired somebody to do it, but it was my control. It was about me. I let all of that stuff go, and I was like, a lot of it, I ain't let it all go. I let most of it go. I still have my issues.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing to let go. I think sometimes in leadership, we have to let go or aren't able to do things that we would like to do. So for example, in my world, there's certain, like the other day, me and my friend, we were out on the boat. We were out there in our swimsuits or whatever. She wants to post pictures on social media. I can't post pictures of me in no swimsuit on social media. You know what I mean?
You had some pasties on and you didn't want people to see it?
You can't do it. I can't do that. And she's like, what? We can't post that we're on a boat. And you can. I can't.
Exactly.
There's simple things that as leaders.
That's different. That's setting a bar. That's respect.
But these are things that as leaders you have to let go that people don't think of when they say, I want to be the boss. I want to be the leader. You don't think of the fact that just average things that you find to be normal that you could do if no one else was, but I can't do those kind of things.
I get it.
You can't say everything you want to say. You can't, post every picture you want to post. So those are simple things,
For me, it's as simple as being out, and you will never see a picture with me and a bunch of drinks in front of me. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find a picture with me and somebody with a drink in their hand because it's that, just like what you're talking about. It's certain things that I just won't do because that's not, that for me personally, that's not where I choose to show leadership.
So as we think about this, I like the idea that there's a cost to leadership, or a price, if you want to talk about it, or to use Julia's words, leadership's expensive. But most things that have a cost or that are expensive, you got to decide whether they're worth it. Mm-hmm. And so how do you guys think about that? I think we've established that there's a cost to leadership. And probably a lot, we could talk about that probably for hours. But in your mind, is the cost worth it?
It depends on your purpose, right? If you are called to do something and you have a purpose for your life to do something, then sometimes it's not really even an option that you be the leader. You're the one called to do it. For example, I would imagine, Emerick, that you have faced many challenges in your journey of leadership. Also, you and Bo are two of the people who have collectively been the examples for pretty much all other Black leadership in the Keller Williams network. So whether you enjoy
and other
it,
places
and a lot of other places, you are in a lot of other places, and we didn't even start this episode off with naming all the leadership roles that we've all held, but some of those weren't something that you actually ever raised your hand to do. You were the person for the job you were called for that time. They needed you. And so you became the leader of something that maybe you didn't even raise your hand to be, but it's part of your purpose. And so is it worth it? Well, yes. I mean, if you have impacted other people's lives, I would imagine that I would hope that you all would feel like your journey was worth it because of how many people you were able to impact along the way, despite the hardships that you encountered as a result. So is it worth it? It depends on if you were walking in your mission, if you were called to do it, if it was your purpose. And in that case, yes, if it impacted people in a great way, then I would say it's worth it. When I served as the head of inclusion and belonging, there was over 800 franchises in 58 countries. It was a very big leadership role. And it, obviously, the topic wasn't always roses and sunshine. Was it worth it? I believe we had an impact. I believe we made an impact on a lot of people, and it was effective in the way it was intended to be effective. So yes, despite the heaviness of it, I feel like it was worth it. So it just depends on what your purpose is in life, if you find it to be worth it. And if it was a solo, like I just want to be rich, then it probably wasn't worth it, because you probably didn't get rich doing what. But I mean, that's a totally dependent question on knowing what your purpose and your mission is in life.
You go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. In that space of leadership, when you're working in that space, even though you're working in your gift zone, and I'm not going to name the organization, but you know what I'm talking about.
I
Julie.
do. You ain't even had to finish a sentence.
Even when you operate in your gift zone and you're that example and you're out in front, and it's not that you like say, I want to do this. It's what was required to make some other things happen. As a leader, sometimes you have to know when to pack it in also. Sometimes you have to know when to say, hey, maybe this is a better suited for someone else, because this is becoming a drain on me personally, and it's detracting from my true greater mission. And you may be a leader in that space, and sometimes you just have to step back and say, I respectfully step back and allow somebody else to take this space so that I can focus on the things of my leadership that are more important, or that are ultimately important to move the needle for me in my life and the people who truly count on me.
Yeah. Before this episode started, we were talking about kind of how the appearance or illusion of leadership has changed with all of social media and people feeling like you just got to follow the person who's doing the most. Whatever they have what did they tell you, Bo? Share with, let me tell you all, the listening audience, what happened here. There was a situation, there's a young man that I believe Bo and Emerick mentor, and he posted something that I personally and professionally felt like, get him, y'all, so I text Unc, call him, cause they're young and they're, they don't know. You all are the leaders, right? You're the leaders. And so I said, Emerick, did you call him? And he said, no. They don't listen. And Bo, you went on to share a story. And I think it's important because there's also a lack of respect for leadership and wisdom that has gone before you. And that becomes taxing. And that's, because you can help these young men. They don't want to listen.
Well, there's a strong...
Say what you want to say.
I'm not going to tell the story, but I'd say there's a strong draw. There's a strong draw to the glamour of leadership. And when you talk to people about the real price, the real cost, but also the real rewards of leadership, it's a lot easier to say, I am looking at the outside. Emerick says, I'll just do the outside. It's like, I'm looking at someone else's outside. And that outside looks fancy. It looks glamorous. And we are easily fooled by that today. We see the appearance of wealth, not real wealth. We see the appearance of happiness, not real happiness. And, my view on this is that real, true, sustainable value, whether it's financial, but more importantly, human value, gets created over time. And so, there's a cost to this. This is hard. Like, leadership's not easy. But my hope is that, like, at the end of the day, as Julia said, if you're stepping in your purpose, you're going to look back and you're going to see with great joy, as in the later part of your life or whenever that time comes, that those impacts have been great on people and on things. But I think that's not what people are watching. So they're coming to me and saying, you're trying to tell us we got to go through this hard time and we got to take unpopular positions. And this guy, man, he's flying private. He's got on, he's got the coolest stuff on. Like, we want to follow him because he appears wealthy. He appears successful. He appears to be a leader. But man, can appearances fool you?
Mm-hmm.
Bo, it's funny you said that. Like, that thing with the private jet. You see the people getting on the private jet. Do you actually see them taking off?
That's funny.
You know what I mean? You always see people getting on the private jet. Do you actually see them taking off?
Here's a better question, Emerick. Do the people who are talking about that actually understand how private jets work? They understand how much it costs to fly a private jet. Do they understand when that would make sense? Like, we had realtors posting like they fly in private to Miami. Okay, you could do that. I ain't mad at you. But does anybody actually understand how much it would actually cost to fly a real plane of 12 people from Washington, D.C. to Miami private and come back? Actually make it back, not just go there, get back. Right. And then look, why don't you go check out how much GCI that mofo actually earned? And what is their margin? And do they have any business even posting a picture with their private? I'm mad about this shit. Could be a bunch of people.
Now you're asking
you
too
work
many
for me.
questions.
I know exactly how much money you make.
Nope.
And you're going to tell me you fly in private to do that? Yeah, well, if you do, you shouldn't be. Because that was like half your earnings from last year.
Well, wait a minute, Bo. They fly private. They don't come back private. They take you don't ever see the plane take off, or you never see them come back on the same plane. They might fly private there. They fly private there and then fly Frontier back.
Not Frontier. Now y'all getting off track. But
Emerick on Spirit Airlines looking out the window. Okay. Sorry.
Y'all getting off track.
No offense to Spirit Airlines.
Big blue sea.
The color of money supports Spirit
you all are
Airlines.
getting off track.
All right, sorry.
But here's the reality of it. Let's just drive it home here. The idea, we started by saying we know that a lot of people say, I want to be the leader. I want to be the boss. I want to own the brokerage. I want to do all of these things. And we know that there's a cost to it. For someone who's stepping into leadership right now, what should they understand about the cost, and why is it still worth it? Because sometimes it is still worth it. We're still here.
I'll tell you why I think it's worth it. It's two things. It's two things to me. One is if you step into leadership and something that you really feel passionate about, that you feel matters and that you're called to do, I think two things happen. You have the ability to affect the world around you and the people around you, and you have the ability to force yourself to grow. And the costs of leadership over time are costs that oftentimes strip you down and leave you broken and beaten in the gutter. But they allow you, they not only allow you, they force you to challenge your ideas of the status quo, to push aside your ego, to make hard decisions, to think about what really matters. And they teach you accountability to something bigger than yourself. And for me, I don't believe that I would be able to learn or grow, and I got a long way to go, but I don't believe that I'd be pushed in that journey if I hadn't accepted some of the costs of leadership. And the second piece is, at the end of the day, I was talking about this last night with a gentleman who built much of the office buildings in Washington, D.C. I was on a panel with him. We were talking about that. And I said something to him because I had been at an event the other day and I'd heard the new CEOs of his company, the people who took over from him, who he'd mentored for 30 years. One guy, 32 years, one guy, 26 years, were now running his company. And I said to him, it must be really a proud moment for you to sit back and to see these two gentlemen taking over what you're doing. And he started crying. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm 78 years old. And when I go to my deathbed, I'm proud of all the communities I affect. I'm proud of the hundreds of office buildings I built in Washington, D.C. But I'm be more proud about these people and the way I was able to touch their lives and what that happened. And so I think that if you are seeking not glory, not fame, not an easy ride, not the best, reservations and the fanciest clothes, best jet, but if you're seeking an opportunity to provide real meaning in your life, to push yourself to grow and to leave a lasting impact, not just in the physical environment, but in the hearts and minds of the people around you, then the cost of leadership is well worth it.
Well, there you have it, friends. I think that's a beautiful ending to the cost of leadership. Leadership is expensive and it's impactful. Friends, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you next week on another fantastic episode of the Color of Money podcast. Until then, y'all take care.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.